My guest today is filmmaker Adam Finberg, who grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and moved to Southern California to attend the American Film Institute's directing program. Now, Adam began his career directing music videos before moving on to commercial work, and his first documentary, After Katrina, Rebuilding St. Bernard Parish, shined a light on the perils and pains of post-Hurricane Katrina New Orleans. Then his first feature documentary, The Business of Recovery, dove into the secret, lucrative world of the American addiction treatment industry. But today we are here to talk about his brand new feature film, Star People, and what a film it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker Adam Finberg and his brand new film, Star People, to the show. Welcome, Adam.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, it's great. I've got to ask, since you grew up in Phoenix, what are the Phoenix Lights and what have people been saying about them for the last 28 years?
The Phoenix Lights was a sighting that happened in 1997. I was actually in high school at the time, where thousands of people across the state witnessed a strange formation of lights, kind of moving across the state, and no one's fully explained what they are. There's been a lot of specials done about it through the years, and no one's quite sure. I had some personal family friend who saw them. And I've also met other people through the years, and everyone who's seen them has described it as something unlike anything they had ever seen.
Well, why did you want to use the Phoenix Lights as part of the plot in your film?
Well, it in era, I mean, it. I think it just always interested me. I mean, I grew up in the era of like Carl Sagan and the Voyager spacecraft, and it was the time when the universe was really just coming into focus for us. Nowadays we see these pictures of the Hubble and all these amazing photos, but there was a time when this stuff was very new, and I feel like in another life I would have been some sort of astronomer. But um, I think the Phoenix Lights for me was just a mystery that just persisted through my life that I always was sort of intrigued by, and just it kind of, as I started developing the story, it was a great jumping off point, but also because I wanted to showcase the state. Excuse me, clear my throat. Arizona is just a beautiful state, and it hasn't been featured a lot in recent movies. And setting this kind of a lot of it being outdoors in the Arizona desert was just something I'd always wanted to do in a story.
Well, for an independent film, you have a very strong cast. You've got a great storyline that gives nothing away, and you keep the audience engaged throughout the film, something I don't always see with independent feature films. So you did an excellent job, I have to say. But as a director, what was the biggest challenge for you to create your first feature film?
That's a great question. The biggest challenge is making your day. I mean, every day every minute was precious. I mean, literally up to the last minute of the day, because with certain limitations on resources and how many days we could shoot, I needed to make it all. I needed to make it work, and a lot of it came out of a lot of planning, but also flexibility. Because as a director, you have to be flexible with what's happening in front of you, to find the story, and with the tools you have and the crew that's around you, and having everybody on the same page was kind of helped make it happen, because it was probably the most challenging couple of weeks of my life making this movie. It was fun and also exhausting at the same time.
Well, was it really 120 degrees outside when you were filming?
It looked like it, didn't it? No, it was not. It was. We would have had a lot of sunburns to deal with our cast, but there were only two times a year we could do the film because of all the exteriors. There was a lot of night exteriors and day exteriors. It was either between the summer to the fall during that transition, when it's like September, or late spring. We ended up doing spring of 2024. We shot from late April till early May. And at that point, it does get hot during some of the days, but also can still get kind of cold in some nights. There were a couple nights where actually we had like jackets on, but the cast didn't. My, but I mean, my hats off to my wardrobe department. I mean, Melissa Evans and her team did a great job keeping the cast like sprayed down and wet, and my costume designer Jennifer did a great job making sure all the wardrobe looked sweaty and dirty. I mean, we had to keep track of like how sweaty or how dirty they were supposed to be in certain scenes because things aren't always in order. And then the cast just had the talent to sell it and to be. And we've had a lot of discussions about how to make sure that it was a part of that of this in every scene that it was there, that they were feeling it, because it wasn't as hot as it looks. I mean, it's supposed to be like 122, 123 degrees out, but it's not that hot.
Well, I believed it because all those elements came in perfectly. So I believe that it was 120 degrees as you were filming because the actors really made you believe that it was extremely hot outside. But I have to say, I love character driven films, and Star People is one of those films. Why did you want to focus more on the characters than actually on, let's say, UFOs or the thought of aliens?
Well, because I think that's what makes a good story. I mean, I think storytelling has a wide variety of approaches. For me, a story where you're really compelled by the characters and their journey of growth is kind of a really is a story that is like an experience, I guess, for me. And also my work on the business of recovery, that documentary really influenced my writing on this because I met a lot of individuals that were struggling with substance abuse and alcohol abuse. Um, I met a lot of experts in the field of addiction treatment. And I mean, unfortunately, some of the subjects I met had died during the filming of that, just from their own substance abuse and alcohol. I mean, not related to the film, but just with their own struggles. And some after the film, and that always kind of haunted me. I think, I made that film about 10 years ago, and when I started kind of figuring out what I wanted to write for this first feature, it needed that always seemed to seep into my character development. It was just characters who were trying to process trauma and the different ways that that can happen. Um, and so that's kind of how a lot of the character development in Star People happened.
Well, yeah, because you have the character Taylor, portrayed by McCabe Slye. What a mess he was, but you slowly revealed his vulnerabilities in the midst of him, well, being a heroin addict. And I found a bit of his, I think he found a bit of his real self along the way, didn't he?
Yeah, McCabe. I mean, he was just a joy to work with. His character, him and his sister Claire, played by Kat Cunning. I mean, they both were kind of isolated from each other, estranged from each other, but also isolated in their own worlds in a sense. And his journey of growth in the story kind of came from finding real human connection, which he sort of was lacking in his life, and that was just a lot of him kind of growing, and through literal pain and struggle in the film.
Yeah, his story within this film is so wonderful to watch because you kept elements of his addiction real and authentic, and I really appreciated that because if people watch his character, they're going to see some elements of an addict, and I think you portrayed it perfectly. But with Claire, which is played by Kat Cunning, I loved how you mixed her UFO sighting with her photosensitive epilepsy. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what photosensitive epilepsy is, it's a type of epilepsy in which seizures are triggered by visual stimuli. And you actually showed this in the film. Why did you want to be very authentic with that condition?
Um, I felt like her character had to have a sort of physical ailment that was sort of related to what she did or what she experienced. So I'm actually a believer that not that I'm trying to say this about epilepsy, but just that certain things that happen to us physically sometimes are related to our internal experiences. And because, and also she had to have, I think she just needed a physical flaw that she was constantly fighting against. I felt like that was something that was needed for her character, to have a struggle. I think that made sense.
It did make sense, and I love the fact that the way that you slowly revealed some of these storylines in this film because when I watched the film, I was entertained from beginning to end. It never lagged. I love character driven. I'm wanting to watch where the characters are going to go. And you did this not only with Claire and Taylor, you did it in a way even with Felix, who was a very interesting character in his own right. And being in Arizona, you even added that coyote element to it, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, that also came from my upbringing, just being in Arizona, hearing so much about border tragedies and, meeting people who had their own stories of how they ended up where they ended up, just trying to escape violence of one kind or another, or trying to be reconnected with their family. I mean, it's a very common, it's a very common element. And yeah, I mean, Bradley Fisher, who did Felix, I mean, he gave me what I, it was so easy for that part to become kind of generic or something, or feel like you've seen before. And he was able to bring a very unique take on sort of the antagonist element.
Well, I'm glad that you created Felix as a character in which, and I'm not going to give any spoilers away in this film because I want everybody to see it, but he really kind of surprises us halfway through this film or towards the end. We really find out who Felix really is.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, it keeps it a surprise.
Yeah, well, I found an incredible balance between all the characters and how you took multiple storylines and perfectly weaved them together, some of which you revealed towards the end of the film. So it's excellent storytelling, Adam. For you, what was out of all of the characters, which one was the biggest challenge?
Hmm. To be honest, Justin, from a writing perspective, was the hardest challenge because I was trying to find the right balance to Claire that felt motivated, and but also real too. I think Justin went through the most sort of reinventions. I think I rewrote that character several times. It went very different versions of it until it kind of landed where it was, and which made the most sense in the end for me, like what he did and why he was there. That he's this like influencer UFO guy, but he has very different reasons for chasing UFOs than Claire does. Um, and Connor Paolo was so great to work with. He's so talented. He was able to bring an earnestness to that character as sort of a kind of a bad guy, but yet make you believe that this character really is confused by what he's experiencing, and having his own struggle with what's happening out there. So he did a great job with that.
Yeah, I keep thinking about this film, and one of the things that we don't get to do here in the east part of Texas is we don't get to see a whole lot of stars in the sky because of the light pollution. And you have these nighttime scenes, and you're showing these sky shots. Are those authentic sky shots? Because I know I've been out west, and it looks like the stars just go on forever.
They do well in Phoenix. Because there's light pollution here, you have to get outside the city to really see that. But you absolutely out in the desert see skies that are just filled with stars. But to create those, back to your question, you can't capture that on camera on a film camera with your actors because of the way things are exposed. So that had to all be added in later, but they are real star images that were captured from real stars. And my effects artist Brian Tooker did an excellent job bringing them in a natural way. Like every shot where you saw stars, he had to bring those into the shot for us. So.
Well, so how far out into the desert did you film outside of Phoenix?
We shot in this area called the Superstition Mountains, which is just southeast of Mesa. So I would say it's like maybe 40-minute drive from downtown Phoenix, 30 minutes. And we were at this ranch called the Quarter Circle U Ranch. They hadn't had a film. I think they had maybe in the 60s, there had been some big Wild West things, but it'd been a long time since anybody had filmed there. And they had this property way out in this canyon. You had to take a dirt road about 8 miles off the grid, I busted a tire on a location scout there. I was driving down the road after it. I didn't realize some guy next to was flagging me down. It's like, your tire is, but it was out there, but close enough that we didn't all have to go stay in some little motel. I mean, we were all close enough to the city. I mean, it was still, for the crew though, it was definitely a challenge because we still had to go back and forth to this location when we were shooting stuff out there. I mean, it was a feat that we accomplished, I think.
Well, has this film been seen by the public or at a film festival yet?
Well, it premiered at the Dances with Films Festival on June 28th. It had a world premiere. Had one screening at the festival, which was amazing. We had over 300 people in this giant screening room at the TCL Chinese theaters in Hollywood. It was amazing. All our cast and crew and friends and associates and other members of the public that showed up. It was amazing. But that's the only public screening of it so far, and it'll be released on July 25th, this Friday, in Phoenix and New York, and also in LA on August 8th in a theater at the Lemley, and then August 12th on video on demand.
Well, what has been the reaction to the film so far, and what are the common questions that you get about it?
Well, I mean, not many people have seen it yet, so I haven't had a lot of questions yet about. But you know, when we had that first screening was amazing because you know a theatrical experience is really what it sound is an experience. When you watch a movie with other people in a large room, it is not the same experience as sitting at home. Even as comfy it is at home, it's just not. You come away with a different experience. And it was something. I had a number of people come and share their emotional experience they had in the film. Watching the film, and also how it surprised them because I think when you see the trailer of this film and you read it, there's no other way to kind of talk about it, but that you think you might know what it's about, but you really don't until you kind of go along for the ride with it. Um, and yeah, I mean, people seem to be pleasantly surprised by what they experience.
Well, I love the film Adam because again, I love character driven films. You also, and in this film, you also give us very good elements of character building in the process, which I absolutely love. But tell me about the sound mixing and the music score because you kept that element and that feel of a bit of maybe Close Encounters of the Third Kind without pushing the envelope of being a full blown sci fi film.
Yeah, it was a tricky balance to find the tone, but um, so the sound. I worked with this one very talented mixer named Niall Popchuk, and from the first days of my figuring out the game plan for this film, the sound was always going to be a very big part because it's also what you hear and what you don't hear. The silent moments from the characters, the soundtrack itself, the crickets, the rumbling of the car, all these things are very important. I mean, Niall took our truck that was in the film and I got him the truck for a day and he went out with 3D mics and just recorded the doors closing, the rumbling on the road and creaks and bangs. And then he went out in the desert and got sounds. There's just a lot of like sound building. I mean, and in a theater, you really feel that 5.1, the surround sound. And creating the sounds that happened in some of the more science fiction elements, figuring out what they felt like was definitely, something that we kind of worked on together just to find the right tone. And I guess the score, I guess I'll talk about it too while we're talking about sound. The score, Reza Safinia, incredibly talented composer. He really understood how to create a motif with the film to create because there are certain layers that build through the film that you kind of return to. It's not like every single track is its own individual thing. There's a through line when you listen to the music that from even the very first track to the very last track, there are certain elements that reappear, but get more complex, I guess you could say, as the film, goes on. Um, and the score, yeah, I mean, I'm an amateur musician. I've been playing piano all my life, and I knew that the music was going to be a very crucial part. And when I found out that Kat Cunning was also a musician, after I cast them, it was also an incredible moment because I was like, oh, I want to hear Kat's music. And Kat is a very talented musician and vocalist, and I knew I wanted to have like Kat's voice in the film, like musically. So Kat agreed to do this and worked with Reza, and the final track of the film that starts at the very end, goes into the credits, is their voice. You know, Kat's singing on there, and Kat wrote it with Reza. Reza's voice is also in the background in that too, because Reza does some vocals. Um, but yeah, so it was soundtrack is a crucial part to a film experience, I think.
Well, that's a pretty added bonus of having your lead actress being musically talented. So, uh, was casting easy or was it difficult?
Um, I would say, I mean, neither here. It definitely was kind of not easy. I mean, it is the most consequential decision you can make as a director on a film is your cast. I mean, I when I went to film school, it was like drilled into you. It's like 90% of your movie is who you choose to cast it, or who you cast. I mean, that's going to make your movie. Um, I mean, it just took some patience because you had to go through enough people and really find that performance that just like jumped off the screen. Because a lot of auditions now, I mean, what I did for this film, it was all my casting directors brought me audition tapes on Zoom, so I wasn't in a room. I mean, when I was in film school, it used to all be in the room, but nowadays, so much. I mean, it's good and bad. I know actors don't like it, but also they can get in auditions easier. They don't have to travel here or there. But just watching Kat's performance, I remember feeling Claire. Like I was just, this is my character that I've been writing. Like I really see it. I feel it. You know, because when you've been in the writing room for so long, I like actually seeing it take shape. And there's all these details to a character that are never on the page that an actor is going to bring in terms of the body language and just their pace and everything, and just vulnerability. And and Kat was able to do that. And once I had Kat figured out, then I was able to start Claire, Claire's character. Then I was able to figure out the brother. And we did some chemistry reads just to figure out where was the sibling dynamic, who was it working with, and who was I believing was the brother. And McCabe just knocked it out of the park. And the two of them were just great as brother, as brother and sister. Um, so yeah, I just feel really lucky about the cast that we brought to the film. And then, and Eddie Martinez, plays Ricardo. After I cast him, he mentioned, because then we were going to cast Gabby after I had Ricardo figured out. But Eddie told me he had a daughter who was also an actress. He'd like to see an audition. I was like, sure, you have a daughter, to play your daughter. Maybe let's see if it works. Adriana is so talented. I saw that performance and I was just like, well, they already have a father-daughter dynamic, and she's would have been like perfect. So they actually are real life father and daughter playing father and daughter on screen. Yeah, and they're very talented family. I mean, Eddie has 3 kids. He had told me later that one of his bucket list wishes was he wanted to act in a film with each one of his kids, and he had already had done it with one of them, and Adriana was the second one. So I guess there's a third he still needs to check off there.
Oh, well, I have to absolutely love that. And I think this whole cast was absolutely perfect and star people. And ladies and gentlemen, on March 13th, 1997, thousands of people in Arizona witnessed the largest mass UFO sighting in U.S. history, now famously known as the Phoenix Lights. Now, in the new feature film Star People, a 10-year-old Claire who, well, felt as if the lights called to her. But years later, Claire, played by Kat Cunning, now a photographer, is still chasing that moment, hoping to capture the lights on camera and finally make sense of what she saw. But when a mysterious tip leads her deep into the Arizona desert during a deadly heat wave with her UFO streamer boyfriend, played by Connor Paolo, and troubled brother Taylor, played by McCabe Slye, in tow, well, they encounter a vulnerable immigrant family whose plight complicates her mission. Now, as tensions rise, Claire searches for the answers among the stars. Now, I loved Star People, and because I love strong character-driven films, you are watching more than the stars, and you've got to keep your eyes on the cast because even your eyes may deceive you. Star People is an independent film by Adam Finberg and debuts in select theaters on July 25th, also August 8th, and will be available on streaming on August the 12th. Star People, again, has a very strong cast, a great storyline that gives nothing away, and it keeps the audience engaged and guessing throughout the film, but never confusing. Something I don't always see in independent feature films. And Adam, you knocked it right out of the park. So I want to thank you for sharing your film with me today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Ward, for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's great
You're
talking with you.
very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show as well as our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on Spotify or iTunes and more. So I want to thank you for watching, because you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.